get started and call this meeting to order. This is the Seattle Redistricting Commission meeting of October 18th, 2022. We want to begin our meeting by first doing a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are located on ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Duwamish, Squamish, Stiligamish, and Muckleshoot tribes, people that are still here and continue to honor their heritage. Land acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native communities and nations. And for non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honor to the Indigenous peoples of this land on which we work and live. It is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. With that, our meeting has begun. We will start off with a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion carries and we have an agenda. We'll move on to adopting the minutes from the October 12th meeting. Staff shared the minutes with us. And at this point, I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
And a second? And a second to the
Sorry,
motion?
I had to get through the scan. I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries and we've approved our minutes from the last meeting. We'll move on to approving the minutes from the October 8th public forum. And they now include remarks from commissioners included overall in the minutes. So we'll take a motion to approve the public forum minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Great. All those in favor say nay, say aye.
Aye.
That would be even an interesting one. Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries and we've approved the public forum minutes. With that done, we are moving on to acknowledging the received comments. We've had over 50 emails since Friday, over hundreds of responses on the public comment survey, and I'm pretty sure many of you have had an opportunity to review those. Please confirm if you've had an opportunity to read the comments.
Yes.
I see nods. Wonderful.
Yes.
Now we're moving on to disclosures of any communication that may be perceived as a conflict of interest. There is none. Great. We'll move on to the discussion on the public education that will happen post map submission. We have 10 minutes on the agenda for this item. Staff have pulled together an overview of our budget and really tracking what we have spent and what we have outstanding in funds. They've also pulled together a draft, as I've asked them, of a plan of how we would roll out this education after our map has been submitted and we can continue to engage the community. So with that, Elsa, I will hand over to you to quickly walk through the commission on that item.
Can you go?
Something went horribly wrong.
Are you muted?
Echo, there's a huge echo, Elsa.
Yeah, and we can't hear you from the other computer.
It's unmuted now.
Is this better?
That's better.
Sorry, but we didn't do a mic check before. So I sent you, and let me see if I can share right now, a summary. It is a summary. It's not the exact numbers of what the commission has spent overall since the beginning of the year. This is a summary that corresponds to the information that we said that it was in your handbook. And so just for your recollection and also for the public, the commission we prepped and had a budget to spend, but the commission was not fully put together until the end of the year, where we had planned to start doing a lot more pre-redistricting education, and therefore we couldn't do as much work at outreach and education until the commission was fully formed, and that happened until last year. And congratulations, it's been a year since you were formation. And so the money left in the funds is now the proposal that we have to, instead of just making sure that the public understands how and where the changes were made with the new map, and an understanding of the process, as well as an understanding of how to do this work. So we put together that proposal. It's very rough. It just outlines where would we spend funds. This includes hiring a consulting firm that can help us create a good messaging for a campaign to let the people know about, to tell the story of how and what happened the first time that the city had a redistricting commission, as well as the education, where it came from, and then how does this affect the public directly? How does this affect individuals? And so that would be the deliverables, and we would work with community liaisons, with community-based organizations that have been involved in the process, as well as producing materials and making them accessible in different languages to just educate the public on this new change in the way that the districts work for the city. So that's the proposal. We'll attach this to the minutes and for the public to learn and know about this. I wanted to know if you have questions, suggestions, and it's definitely very draft outline of what would it look like, but I wanted to get a sense of what you were thinking. And this, what we would ask is for you to delegate our department, the Department of Neighborhoods, to do the education and outreach to do this work.
Well, thank you, Elsa. I do see Commissioner Nichols has his hand up, and Commissioner Sullivan had his hand earlier.
Elsa, my recollection is that King County Department of Elections also informs voters that their districts have changed. Is the proposal that you're bringing to us in sync with that, acknowledging that and trying to play off of that?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. Yes, so if this will mean having a close conversation with them, with their communications department, and to possibly, you know, be resourceful and share funds to make sure the public knows and gets to it. We know we had a conversation earlier in the year, and they have plans to do this education. They were not yet ready to say how they were going to do it. So this would be a good time to do us a together strategy.
Great, thank you.
And just to follow up on that, Elsa, you have had preliminary conversations though with King County on this draft plan that they—
Yes, we're in communications. Yes.
Yeah.
They're very eager to know. Also.
That's it.
Yes. I think Commissioner O'Sullivan had a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. So the looks like the largest component is a consulting communications contract. Is that a contract that would go out for bid and there would be a bidding process, or is there already an entity that you have in mind for that?
Good question, thank you. We are working the details on that because it depends on the amount of money that, whether we're required to do an RFP, but definitely we'll put it out there. We don't have a consulting firm. We would be asking out and making public to know that we're looking for somebody to do this job. And if you have recommendations of people or people that we could talk to, that would be great as well. Because as you know, we want to make sure that the people that we work with knows and understands the process and can make this process that has been historic, convoluted, and also complicated to make it easy and accessible. So that is pretty much the goal.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Do we know whether or not King County or the state or other redistricting entities have engaged in this sort of educational process?
No, that I know of, and this actually, I took this also as part of some of the public comments earlier in the year where they said make sure that the city of Seattle make sure to educate the public on extensively about how it works and how it impacts regular citizens. So I don't know a specific campaign that the state or King County used. I can look more into it for sure.
Also, with the commission wrapping up our work likely at the end of November, how would you like the commission to best support this effort now? Is it just giving direction to staff, being a part of the RFP process for the contract as you bring a communications consultant? And beyond that, what else do you need from the commission to define clear next steps?
I would love for that to be a delegation, yes, from the commission to staff. I will put together a very clear proposal for next time, so you give me green light, and I'll work with our finance department to make sure that all the funds are good to go and they can be spent in that way. And also, happy to have as much participation as you would like to have in the design or decision, or as little as you want to. It's up to you.
That's helpful. Any other questions or comments on this post-map education work? Well, seeing none, I will ask that we move a motion. It may not be necessary, but just to provide direction to staff to move forward on this draft plan, finalize the plan on post-map submission education work, as well as bring to us a proposal around an RFP for contracting with the communications urgency.
So moved.
Any seconding?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? None. The motion carries, and Elsa, I believe you have authority to move forward with the post-education planning.
Thank you.
With that done, and we're moving right on time, we're moving to the public comment section. We have received folks who've signed up to testify well ahead of time. And then we will take hands of folks who will be in the room and would like to testify, whether it's in person or in the virtual room. And you will all receive 3 minutes to provide your comments. So starting off with Ann Goss, Linda Clifton, and then followed by Eric Peel. Ann, if you're on the call, please take it away.
Hope you can hear me. Thank you, Commission, for the chance to testify. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. knowing that you still have to decide what maps are going forward, we have picked up some information. And so I want to be sure that we provide some comment on the Malaba map, and particular the lines that are drawn in the southern part of Magnolia. 28th is a main arterial, and the way that you've done the north part on the Malaba map, which is basically the RJS map, then cuts down and includes all of the area of Magnolia that has apartments and condos. But on the southern side, you go down McGraw Street. McGraw is the main east-west line, a street that goes through Magnolia Village. At the part of where you're going down McGraw, that is a residential street. You then go south on Condon, and then you cut on 30th Avenue West. I happen to live on 30th Avenue West, ironic as that may be. That is a purely residential street, and it's a narrow residential street. And it's one thing to crack Magnolia. It's another thing to use what is clearly not an arterial street, splitting neighbor from neighbor. I do hope, and I'm not sure now of the process of what map you're eventually going to go with, but if the Malaba map is where you go, it would be wonderful to discuss if there are less disruptive ways to sub-neighborhoods to split the southern part of Magnolia and fracture it. I think there are more arterials that could be used. And so we look forward to seeing what compromises, if any, can be made to fix that map so you're not splitting literally neighbors of mine, my neighbors from each other. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. I do have a question just to inform the discussion here as you were talking about the specific lines. Are there alternative lines that you would recommend if we're moving from 28th Avenue as a boundary, as a west boundary?
Yes, but I'd like to do that collaboratively. In other words, it seems like there's a lot of collaboration going on with different groups at different times. And we've requested several times to be more engaged in this process when it comes to fracturing our neighborhood. And this would be a great opportunity to work collaboratively to see if we can't avoid literally splitting neighbor to neighbor.
Thank you for that, Anne. We'll be sure to follow up. Our time is closing in on us, and if you do have any specific lines that you would like us to consider as we go through discussions and amendments here, we would deeply appreciate that. And thank you for your engagement in this process. We're moving on to Linda Clifton.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for allowing us to speak again, and for all of the time and dedication it takes to do this difficult work. I want to speak to a couple of things. First of all, I want to note that as a member of the Fremont Neighborhood Council Board, I want to report that our board voted this past week to support the Redistricting Justice Seattle map, both the organization and its map, particularly because their map keeps Fremont in canal districts entirely north of the Ship Canal. FNC earlier sent you a letter at the very beginning of this process saying that we were willing to remain split between districts 4 and 6 if that helped with the redistricting issues. That's where we are now, and we're willing to stay that way. What we find, however, is the map we saw in the last hearing, which puts us in districts, in 3 districts, is totally unacceptable. And the O'Sullivan amendment we saw last time, which puts us entirely in District 7, is also unacceptable. And I want to speak for just a minute about why I feel so strongly about this as a resident of East Fremont. As a resident of East Fremont, I found us as residents fighting crime along Aurora and facing the fact that there is a joint interest on both sides of Aurora in the territory that's mapped as the Fremont Neighborhood Council. There's been real strength in staying together as a council. They helped us fight crime. They helped us defeat crime. They also helped us with community building. We have two beautiful murals that bridge that were built because of community input. We've had community cooperation with Trolls Knoll and with the pea patches and with the Trolls Forest that is currently being built to make a better space that makes our neighborhood whole. And all of that has come with close relationships with the North Precinct and with our two community council districts. Those have been important relationships to help all of this work go forward over the last 10 or 12 years. We want to maintain those relationships. To fracture them would be incredibly problematic. We have both, I and Eric have both submitted comments to those effects with more detail. We hope you'll pay attention to those. And again, we thank you for your work.
Thank you, Linda. You will be followed by Eric Peel.
Good afternoon, Chair Malaba and Commission members. Thank you as well. I'd like to join Linda in saying thank you so much for your service on the Seattle Redistricting Commission. It's challenging work, and at the same time, I really appreciate some of the great work you are doing. You've done some great things with the South End. I've lived in Fremont for more than 20 years. I've served on the board of the Fremont Neighborhood Council for most of that time, and including serving as president. I've been super engaged in neighborhood activism and very involved with a lot of city agencies, and the city council, city attorney's office, Department of Neighborhoods, many of them. And my wife and I are both activists and actively engaged. These activities, I think, give me a unique perspective to really look at the alignment of Fremont and the ways in which Fremont has worked together as a collaborative neighborhood with Ballard, Wallingford, and Finney. And moreover, the ways in which those collaborations are successful. I'm speaking in support of the Redistricting Justice proposal and the Malaba Juarez amendment that maintains Fremont's current district boundaries in District 6 and 4. I do not support this course because it is a status quo, but because it is the most effective for the city council, and the Fremont neighborhood, and it is the most just solution. Challenges north and issues north of the Ship Canal tend to run latitudinally from east to west and west to east, and that means the ability for us to collaborate with our neighbors enables us to solve some rather significant and complex issues, such as you've heard me talk about with the issues on Aurora, the public safety issues on Aurora, and currently we're working on an issue with Ballard about the rechannelization of Leary Way. We're able to be effective with these because we can work across our neighborhoods, and because we're in the same council district, and because we're all north of the Ship Canal in the North Precinct. I also want to call your attention to an email you received from Toby Thaler this morning, who was very involved in the Charter 19 amendment, and in fact was the lead drafter of the Charter amendment. He has come out suggesting that the issues around Fremont, he is highly recommending the Fremont is much more aligned with the neighborhoods to its east and west than across the Ship Canal and to the north with Finney Ridge. While it is necessary for district boundaries to cross the Ship Canal, it is not necessary that more than one district cross the water. He supports the goals of redistricting justice for Washington, and their support for the map, the prior map, deserves considerable weight. Those are my comments. Thank you again for your service to the city.
Thank you, Eric. for your engagement. That concludes the folks that registered ahead of time to testify, and we'll move on to people who are raising their hands in the virtual room. But before we do so, Elsa, do we have anyone in the room wishing to testify?
No, Commissioner Shea, we don't have anybody here.
Great. With that, we'll move on to the folks that raised their hand in the order that I have been able to monitor so far. We have the Win-Win Network being first, and I believe that's Katie. And then we'll move on to Andrew Hong being the next speaker. So Win-Win, over to you.
Hello, thank you, Commissioner Malaba, and the commissioners this morning. My name is Katie Stoltz. I'm with the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition. It's great to see you all this morning, really at the very tail end of this marathon process. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I'll keep my remarks short so we can get to the real business of today. I'm joining from District 4 in Green Lake here in North Seattle. I'm excited to just really quickly touch on our hopes for today. I want to urge the Commission to pass Commissioner Juarez's amendment from the last meeting and to really prioritize feedback from the majority of testifiers at the public hearings throughout this process. Over this process, the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition has gathered over 100 supporters for our coalition, and as of today, we have nearly 220 pledges of support for the RJS map proposal, when we have representation of support from every district across the city. I just urge you to honor this overwhelming support and consider the RJS map and related amendments in your final map. Thank you all so much for your service on this commission and the work you have done to lead this process. We are also excited to be a part of the process after this of really public education. And it's exciting to hear about the plan to really make sure that organizations and groups and folks that have been a part of this process and really giving feedback will also be a part of making sure that folks know about the changes in the new map. Thank you all for the time this morning and look forward to the rest of the meeting. Take care.
Thank you, Katie. Katie will be followed by Andrew Hong, and then right after that, we'll have Janice Trevin. Andrew, over to you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Andrew Hong. I am a lifelong resident in District 2 in South Seattle, and I'm the campaign coordinator of the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition and the Seattle Coalition. So first, comes as no surprise, but the coalition and myself urged the commission to adopt the Juarez amendment to adopt the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition map. It's a map that was developed over months long of community engagement, education, and input. And we have the single most popular map across all 7 districts in Seattle. As we heard today, community councils from Fremont, for Beacon Hill, the Central District, the South End, all across the city support the RJS map. And we have over 210 public or pledge support forms, petition signatures from across the Seattle and all 7 council districts supporting our map. This is, again, the single most popular map. And if the commission is going to live up to its stated goals of passing a map that has the most public support and is most informed by communities and most supported by communities, the RGS map in the Juarez Amendment accomplishes that. And on a separate note, I would like to suggest, if the commission is voting on the 3 amendments that were proposed on the table last week, that the commission votes in order of most sweeping change to least sweeping changes, in order to fully, get a good sense, like an appropriate sense of each commissioner's vote. So that would be starting with the Juarez Amendment, and then going to the Malaba Amendment, and then the O'Sullivan-Shaw Amendment, I think kind of represents the most sweeping to least sweeping changes to the current commission draft map, which would allow kind of a better sense and like the most accurate sense of each of the commissioners' stances in order to make the changes most reflected by the commissioners' preferences. Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion, Andrew. You will be followed by Janice Trevin, then right after Janice would be Jennifer Nagel. Janice, over to you.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So I have to say that all of the issues that my friend Linda Clifton and Eric Peel mentioned as to the sanctity of neighborhoods and neighborhoods remaining whole, as a Magnolia resident, I'm very sensitive to keeping neighborhoods whole. I agree. And I think that the commission should pay attention to keeping neighborhoods whole. I heard a rumor that the Shaw O'Sullivan map is going to be pulled. And I want to know, I'm very curious to know what non-public influence has occurred since last week or since the draft map, which shows Magnolia whole, was introduced. It can't be because of public comments, because on the public comments page, the vast majority of public comments since the O'Sullivan Shaw map was introduced and then improved to make it more representative. Most of the comments have supported that map instead of opposed it. So if you look at, if it's a numbers game, the numbers support the Shaw O'Sullivan amendment. I'm also very disturbed how this commission is going to justify deliberately creating a divided community here in Magnolia to remedy wrongs that have divided communities in the past. That doesn't seem like justice to me. I encourage you to revisit the O'Sullivan Shaw map. Regretfully, it covers the Ship Canal twice. That doesn't seem to be an issue when it only affects Magnolia. But I encourage you to keep neighborhoods whole. Neighborhoods don't get to choose which district we're in. We would like to stay in District 7 with our neighbors, Queen Anne. We've given that up. But don't divide Magnolia. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, for your comments and engagement. We're moving on to Jennifer Nagel.
Sorry, I had to push the unmute button. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for all of your hard work. Really appreciate it. And I know it's very difficult. And I do believe that the residents here in Magnolia, where I live, and I've lived here since 1984 and been involved in various groups here, really do respect the needs of other communities. As we mentioned before, though, we are all dependent on the 3 entrances and exits to the neighborhood, as well as the businesses. And so it's really, really important to remain together as a whole community. So I really want to encourage the commissioners to approve the Shaw O'Sullivan amended draft. And if that is not possible, I would like to have the commission consider putting the bridge itself, which doesn't have residents, with most of the Magnolia community, because that has been an issue for us for a long time in terms of its age and needing replacement. But we would very much like to remain together as a community. And in noticing the map, I don't know if the commissioners have already, I'm sure you've already considered, but revisiting the north boundaries of North Beach and Greenwood and see if those could be adjusted to keep Fremont and Magnolia whole. Just an idea, but please, please keep us together as a community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. You will be followed by Patrick Kraft. Patrick, over to you.
Hi, I'm Patrick Kraft, Senior Advisor, former President of the Magnolia Chamber of Commerce, an organization of nonprofits, charitable organizations, individuals, families, businesses large and small, all neighbors within the Magnolia community whose efforts each day support the greater good of the city of Seattle. We appreciate the work of the commission. We recognize the public comments, not actually a dialogue, but the nearest we have to communicate to you who we really are, and to provide you a fuller picture of the people on the map and the importance of keeping a unified Magnolia within any one district. Magnolia is a neighborhood with a rich history of partnership with citywide aspirations and achievements, partnerships built by engaging voices of people, not tearing them down. As Seattle benefits when we all work together, Magnolians know what it means to participate for the greater good. The people on the map of Magnolia live in the present with an experienced eye on the past, a vision for the future of an inclusive Seattle, collectively richer as every voice is engaged. And we urge you to appreciate the Shaw-O'Sullivan map as a recognition of the people who live and work in Magnolia. A map of Magnolia is a map of voices living and working within the unique geography, surrounded by waterways on all four sides, who find themselves at the doorstep of some of Seattle's most complicated capital expenditures for the future that all of Seattle will benefit from, and engaging all voices from within the City Council will be critical to the success. We ask that you see the map of the people of Magnolia and support the map that does not dilute voices, but engages voices, does not fracture and crack apart a neighborhood that is so obviously one geographic area of people. Look at the map as people who consistently contribute to Seattle's progress. And allow me to give you an admittedly very whirlwind tour of the map, highlighting just some of those moments. Let's start along 15th Avenue West. You are at the eastern edge of the people of Magnolia. When the city wanted to burn garbage for decades, that was done there at the foot of Magnolia. Eventually, the site is covered and mitigated to become a modest golf course for all of the city to enjoy. Look at the northwest corner. That's the people of Magnolia, a stunning Discovery Park, which once served as a military base for decades. It was Magnolians who most intimately served to the greater good as a city extension of that base. Imagine all the troops and weaponry and vehicles crisscrossing residential streets all those years. Eventually, that base is decommissioned. Rightfully, the United Tribes received land from the Daybreak Star Indian Cultural Center, and the remaining areas become a city's great park that the people of Magnolia keep a watchful eye upon as the most immediate neighbors. Look to the northwest corner. That's the King County, Snohomish County, City of Seattle. When they went to process regional sewage, it goes through Magnolia. Look to the northeast corner, the fisheries, the railroads. These are fundamental, foundational economies that participate in the global marketplace. These are the voices of Magnolia. We benefit when we work together. Please vote for a map of Magnolia as one. These are people on the map of Magnolia who participate in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, for your comments and engagement. I do see we have one more hand raised, and we'll encourage folks to still raise your hands. We'll still have a couple of minutes for public comment here. Allison, over to you.
Hi there, my name is Allison Teeterbaker, and I am a resident of Fremont, and I'm also on the Fremont Neighborhood Council Board. And I just wanted to echo the comments from Linda Clifton and Eric Peel regarding support for the redistricting justice map and also the Malaba Juarez map. And I just want to say too that Fremont has offered to stay split in districts 4 and 6, and we're willing to remain that way because it's more important that we stay together with those councils and those neighborhoods going east to west. And as a parent of young children, and I'm involved in other endeavors, I know that I collaborate a lot with friends and neighbors and the community going from east to west. And just in terms of like civic issues and public issues, yeah, there's a lot more collaboration there than going south of the Ship Canal. And so that's it from me. Thank you for all the work being done regarding this process.
Thank you, Allison. Any other folks who would like to testify at this moment? This is your opportunity to provide comment right before we go into our amendment discussions. Going once and going twice. With that, we conclude the public comment section and move on to the next agenda item. I will repeat what I've said in past public hearing sessions, just the depth of gratitude from all of us for your level of engagement. It's really been palpable. We feel the passion for your community. It's not just high level feedback. Many of you are going right into the crunching of numbers and providing specific feedback, which we deeply appreciate because it informs our decision making. With that said, we are moving right into the discussion on the amendments. And I will set the stage in this way. I will ask the commissioners as we get to the map discussions to speak to your intent or direction of voting. In particular, because we really want the public to understand where we are coming from in the decision-making that we will do today. In terms of the review of the specific amendments, I will ask the technical prowess from Mary to provide a quick overview for the benefit of the public, what each amendment is doing before the commissioner sponsoring that or leading on that amendment can speak to their intent. Does that sound like a plan that works for all of us? Fantastic. All right.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Awesome. I am going to start this conversation by looking at the amended draft map that was approved or voted on a couple weeks ago on September 27th. So this is what you guys agreed on a few weeks ago. I will note that this particular draft does not include the requested amendments by King County elections, which straightens out the boundary between District 3 and District 2 right here at I-90 and between District 4 and District 5 just north of Sandpoint. These are very small amendments that they had requested that are dealing mostly with 0 population census blocks. As a reminder, the big change between the draft and this amended draft is making Magnolia all in District 6 with the boundary along 15th Avenue Northwest and then moving along the Magnolia Bridge out to Smith Cove here. In order to make the population numbers work, that meant that this section of Fremont would be then in District 7. Okay, so that is an overview of the amended draft. Moving on here, this is the O'Sullivan-Shaw proposed amendment. And what happened or what is happening here is that everything is the same. The proposed amendments by the King County records and elections were included in this map. So that straightens out the boundary here between District 3 and District 2 along I-90 and between District 4 and District 5 right here north of Sandpoint. After feedback from the public, this draft or this proposed amendment makes the boundary of Fremont coming along 50th to Northwest 8th down to the Ship Canal. And again, Fremont is still included in District 7. In order to make this work, a section of Northwest Queen Anne needed to be included in District 6. So the boundary, instead of going along 15th all the way up to the Ballard Bridge here, cuts over at Ray to 14th Avenue Northwest and then out to Nickerson here and then finally to the Ship Canal. There's also a little further south here, instead of the Magnolia Bridge being the southern boundary, it comes further south to Mercer Street and Elliott. So that is, but everything else is the same as the current draft. Next, we're looking at Commissioner Malaba's proposal, which is, again, keeping everything the same as the draft. Included in this particular proposal is the changes that King County Records and Elections wanted to see, which is straightening out this boundary between District 3 and District 2 and straightening out the boundary between District 5 and District 4 north of Sandpoint here. So Fremont remains in District 6 and District 4. And then the boundary between District 6 and District 7 is mostly along 28th Avenue West in Fremont. Starts down here at 32nd Avenue and the water, moving up to Howe Street, where it moves to the east to 30th, follows 30th to Condon Way, and then McGraw, and then finally follows 28th over here to West Manor Place, and then along Emerson Street here out to 15th, and then moves up along to the Ballard Bridge. And then everything else remains the same as the amended draft. Finally, we move into Commissioner Juarez's proposal, and this one is you're going to see the most changes. First is the boundary between District 2 and District 3 does not follow I-90. It actually is a little bit further south here, and doesn't include a section in this area of the Atlantic neighborhood. So it comes south, follows I-90, and then comes south to Massachusetts, over to South 28th Avenue South, down to Plum Street, and then moves along 31st Avenue South, and then remains on the south side of Coleman Park out to the Lakeside Avenue and the water. Another change is from the amended draft is using puts all of the Wedgwood neighborhood south into District 4. In this proposal, the Wedgwood neighborhood and of course I have to turn on the labels here so I say these right. So, and Roosevelt neighborhood are put in District 5. The boundary between District 6 and District 4 is moved from I-5 over to 99 or Aurora Avenue. So Green Lake is no longer in District 6, it's now in District 4. Which means that all of Greenwood then is in District 6 because Wedgwood and Roosevelt are now in District 5. So Greenwood now is entirely in District 6. I will note right here that there is the boundary here is following 100th Street out to Puget Sound, and Records and Elections, King County Records and Elections noted that this particular portion of that boundary is actually following an easement and following is cutting between census blocks. And so they had a recommendation that this boundary actually comes south on 15th Avenue Northwest and follow the streets and then go back up to 100th. And so that would move 173 people into District 5, which are currently in District 6. So on this map, you would be following this, they suggest following 15th Avenue West, and then these streets right in here to capture, to have this boundary make a little bit more sense by following a road. And then finally moving to Magnolia. This boundary would start on the south end here at 32nd Avenue Northwest, excuse me, west, moving up to Howe Street, and then moving north on 30th and Condon, and then east on McGraw, and finally north on 28th Avenue West, up to Manor Place, and then following Manor Place down to Emerson. So I believe those are all the changes on the Juarez proposal from the current amended proposal.
Great. Well, Mary, thank you for walking us through all these changes. With that, we will invite commissioners to share your comments, and in speaking to your comments, just talk a little bit about your intent as you discuss the amendments. Commissioner Juarez, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first since the lines are fresh. So first of all, I want to say thank you to our incredible staff who I think makes very complex things accessible to the public and has been incredibly responsive in engaging with members of the public and also putting up with the commissioners. So thank you, Mary and Dennis and others. So for me, during this past year of work, we've seen Redistricting Justice lead one of the most comprehensive campaigns for public input on how Seattle should draw its council maps for the next decade. This amendment is in response to that. Their work included listening to voices that were not always in agreement, building relationships, and seeking experts to craft what has become the most broadly supported map up for consideration, even more popular than those proposed by the commissioners or other members of the public. I've been transparent in every meeting about how I view my role as a commissioner, and it's been to adopt the most fair, most equitable, and most legal maps possible that have the broadest public support. And I believe there is no monopoly on good ideas, and we should more frequently serve as a conduit for community-led embedded solutions and put them up for a vote. I think that we have the opportunity to model servant leadership in this moment by acknowledging the robust engagement and scrutiny the RJS map has received and offering to vote on that proposal in its original form, which is why my amendment takes that form. Throughout this process, my colleagues have praised, and myself included, on numerous occasions, that deep relationship building and broad coalition that was built by our neighbors, by our community members to support the RJS map. And in fact, 3 of our initial draft proposals largely mirrored that. Subsequent amendments and changes to those first proposals have, in my opinion, and reflected in public comment, moved too far away from the public's first preferred map. And as with any redistricting process, not everyone will be satisfied. I've tried to make as many people satisfied as possible while following the law. I empathize with Magnolia residents who are being asked to carry the same type of district splits that for decades have been carried by other neighborhoods that have been predominantly people of color, renters, and young people. But for me, if we're truly in this all together, then we have to be in this together. No neighborhood can be exempt from the realities of governance and democracy. We cannot simply say pass when shared responsibility of living in a community comes to our neighborhood. The RJS map is fair to the most people and splits the least number of neighborhoods. It satisfies our legal requirements and enjoys support in more than one district. In fact, in all but one district, the public comment and testimony has clearly expressed a strong preference for the RJS map. We have a duty to the entire city, and I hope all comments from all districts are weighed here in calls for equity and legal compliance. I thank the city residents from every district that for months have helped shape the city's district lines. Speaking with folks individually, even when we disagreed, has been heartening as I hear our shared commitment to Seattle and its electoral systems. It's made me love this city even more. I remain steadfast that within the legal parameters we are guided by and the overwhelming public support of the RJS maps, that we have a duty to vote and pass this map. It's why I introduced it as my final amendment in this process. Now you, my colleagues, who have worked hard to represent the interests of the city, and I'm honored to serve with, it's been one of the greatest things is to meet you all. We have the ability to decide if we accept that community-led solution. And we've proven that this process can be done in plain view with the public transparently and towards a common goal. So now I ask you to please consider supporting my amendment, entirely informed and created by months of work from your neighbors across Seattle.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. I will pause at this point and invite commissioners to speak, whether you're speaking to amendment or in response.
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Commissioner Shaw.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time today. I'd say overall, I'm really proud of the way this commission has worked together to listen to communities and do the hard work of analyzing trends and working with the capable King County GIS team to develop different map options. I know I've spent countless hours with our GIS experts trying to find solutions that will work best for our city. As you know, I've explored options that keep Magnolia together in District 6, as I do take their needs, especially as it relates to the bridges, seriously. However, this required moving most of Fremont into District 7 and crossing over waterways twice, which is less than ideal. I also looked at ways to keep the Magnolia businesses areas together. And I think my colleague, Chair Malaba, found boundaries that seem to resonate better with the community, though not perfectly, and that might need still some work to come. So thank you for that, Chair. In the spirit of the commission working together, collaborating and compromising when needed, I support the Malaba amendment compromise with the hope that we can improve upon the map as suggested by Magnolia if possible. She also adopted some of the boundaries from my previous map that pulls East Lake into one neighborhood into District 3. So depending on the results of the vote of her amendment, I may withdraw the Shaw-O'Sullivan map for consideration. I really do believe that all levels of government should compromise, even down to the levels of commissions like this one. Regrettably, we don't see that very often in any levels of government. Finally, I'll add that I do appreciate all the work of Redistricting Justice for Washington. I think they have shown that they really understand the needs of residents in the south end of Seattle, the Central District, the U District, and even parts of downtown. However, I feel that we did not hear directly from many comments from residents of Green Lake, which their map includes splitting Woodland Park Zoo into 2 districts, which I'm sure many people will not like, or cutting the Wedgwood neighborhood in half. As we have seen from the experience of Fremont and even Magnolia, for the most part, residents have engaged in this process, engaged in the process until it affects their own neighborhood. In addition, I have not seen the kinds of outreach in these neighborhoods compared to others, even from our city staff, I'll admit. For these reasons, I don't think it's fair or right to vote on Commissioner Juarez's amendment, and I don't support making major changes this late in the process. It doesn't give all those other neighborhoods time to comment and mobilize. And as Andrew Hong stated, this map has the most sweeping changes of all the maps, and I don't think it's right to do that at this very last moment. So I would request that we first vote on the Malaba amendment and go from there. I've appreciated hearing from everybody and really enjoyed working with this commission. And I know that we'll all do our best to continue to be transparent and fair and continue to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Would other commissioners like to provide comments before we move to voting and discussions? Commissioner O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair Malaba, and thank you to my fellow commissioners. This has been a phenomenal process to be a part of. Just to see the number of people engaged in the process and the passion with which everyone is participating in our democracy. I also really want to thank our staff, Elsa and Logan. You've made this such an open and engaging process. To our GIS team, Mary and Dennis, and the countless hours that you've spent working with me as I try to understand exactly how these maps work. It's been an enormously educational process for me. I also really appreciate the work that has been done by their Redistricting Justice Coalition, and that their outreach, their engagement, their participation, and what they've brought, the values that they've showed in this process. And those are values that I share, ensuring that traditionally marginalized communities are heard, that we combat the history of redlining, that we're adopting a map that is truly representative of the communities that haven't had their voice heard in the past. So throughout this process, I've listened to comments, I've tried to adopt amendments that were responsive to different people that I've heard, different ideas, whether it's data analysis or coalitions or community groups that are impacted by our decision. I've offered amendments. I've tried to make changes. I've tried to work through the process in an open and transparent way. And as Commissioner Shaw indicated at the end, we're never going to make everybody happy. We need to come to a conclusion that is going to be as representative as possible. And so based on my understanding of where we're at, I'm prepared to support Commissioner Malaba's amendment. And I would like us to vote on that amendment first. I also, at this point, this is the point in the process at which I think we're going to be communicating to the community of Magnolia that we can't keep Magnolia whole. As such, I would like us to take just a couple more weeks to get more input from Magnolia and see if we can draw the line through Magnolia in a way that attempts to listen to their feedback as closely as possible. That this is a map. We've built in some extra time in this process. We've made some really difficult compromises, and Magnolia is going honestly to be taking the brunt of our compromise. And so I want us to take a little bit more time, get a little bit more feedback, and try to find a way, even though that community is going to end up being split between two districts, let's try to find a way to listen to the feedback and work through a process to ensure that that line is drawn in a way that does the least amount of harm. So in conclusion, I'm willing to support Commissioner Malaba's amendment with a request from the commissioners that we adopt this today, but spend a little bit more time getting feedback from the community that's going to be most negatively impacted. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Any other commissioner would like to provide comment here before I move us along? Commissioner Nichols.
You're muted.
You think that's a coincidence?
Go ahead.
First, I want to echo the comments that have been made about the collaborative process that we have gone through, both as colleagues on the commission and with the community as a whole. We've gotten very good participation, more participation than I had expected at the beginning of the process. Part of that is because of the maps that we've generated, of course. I supported the Shaw-O'Sullivan amendment a week ago because I felt it was an improvement in terms of how it treated the Fremont neighborhood. And I supported the newer draft because it treated Magnolia better than the original adopted draft. I, however, cannot support what I see as a step backward, and that is in both the Commissioner Juarez's amendment and Commissioner Malaba's amendment, splitting Magnolia. And I disagree, Commissioner O'Sullivan, with the idea that there's no way that Magnolia can't be split. That simply, to me, is not acceptable. I made a proposal early that would have kept Magnolia whole and kept it with Queen Anne, as it historically has been in our political jurisdictions, that kept Fremont whole and together with other communities north of the Ship Canal. It required us to move District 6's northern boundary from Carkeek Park to the North City limits and its eastern boundary over to I-5. I-5 is, as is the Ship Canal, a huge barrier in our city, and I think is, as in the south end, makes sense as a boundary for us. That allows Magnolia to stay whole and to stay in a south of the Ship Canal border or district with Queen Anne. It allows the communities north of the Ship Canal to be kept whole. It does require one crossing, and that would have been District 4. But I would submit that communities of Laurelhurst and Madison Park have a good deal in common, even though they are separated by a body of water. I will be voting no. I don't know what order these are going to come up in, but I will be voting no on the proposals that will resplit Magnolia. And should one of those pass, I will resubmit my original proposal that would keep Magnolia whole, keep it with Queen Anne, keep Fremont whole, and north of the Ship Canal. I just don't see a very good rationale for the splitting of a community that everyone acknowledges is both historic and a community of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. I will build on the comments the commissioners have shared here and just express the depth of gratitude to staff for making this such an accessible and easier process for all of us. I also express gratitude to the commissioners for the collaborative spirit that you brought to this table and the extent to which you have extended yourself to listen to the community. I think if folks will really speak to the level at which governments currently listen to community, you've really set the standard in being able to do that, in bringing forward community-led solutions, in bringing forward all voices. I believe that we do have a duty to the entire city to listen to different voices. And the amendment before you, and thanks to the commissioners speaking to the level of collaboration that has happened to get us to this point, really seeks to treat all communities fairly. We had concerns from Magnolia with the initial map that we released and sought to move forward solutions that continue to treat all communities fairly. And I looked at ways that the business district can be kept whole, the open space in that area can be kept whole. And I am open to us extending time to hearing from Magnolia what alternative lines would ultimately be a good place if we adopt and move this amendment forward. We've also looked at Fremont. The change and swap to Fremont was, while really well intended, with very strong coordination with community, Commissioner Shah and Commissioner O'Sullivan, deeply grateful for the work you did. I know it takes so many hours going back and forth on the equation of balancing the numbers, and you did all of that during and off hours where you were attending community meetings, you were spending a lot of time with the GIS team to get to an alternative. But we had from community the concerns that they had. And Fremont has been willing to be split into districts within District 6. And I think all of us as Seattle, we just have a responsibility to offer gives and gets when we compromise. And not only one community or the other being at the sacrifice. And with that, I believe the amendment that we have before us works towards a place where we're listening to all of the voices. We're committed to continue to engage extensively with Magnolia once the amendment has been adopted to further understand how best we can have a line that ultimately gets us to a place where the community feels like their voices have been heard. With that said, I will pause here and move us to discussing votes for amendments. Commissioner O'Sullivan.
I would like to move the Malaba amendment for a vote.
Any second?
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Should we might want to have discussion first.
Oh, discussion. All right, I'm looking at 15 minutes. Let's go ahead with discussion.
And maybe we don't need it. I mean, we've all spoken, but in case there's any additional comments.
Well,
I'll just comment that I concur with Commissioner O'Sullivan and our chair that a little bit more work is needed on this amendment in Magnolia, and that we should work directly with the community to see if it's possible to make further changes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Shah. Commissioner Juarez, I do see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so it was basically the similar comment, but I'm looking for boundaries in which the line would be considered for additional review, so we can set some parameters around how much we are looking at.
Yeah. And the goal would be minimal change. Commissioner O'Sullivan.
The boundaries would be changed only within Magnolia. We would be looking at any other changes. So I would like to hear a little bit more from community about what might make the most sense. But I would want to limit the scope of any further changes to just the boundary line between District 6 and District 7 in Magnolia.
Is that a motion?
Well, I think we're only voting on Commissioner Malaba's amendment, but I think the spirit is from myself, from Commissioner Shaw, and from Commissioner Malaba that we're supporting this with the hope of doing more engagement and taking another week or two to try to fine tune the map. So I don't think that needs an amendment. I don't offer that as an amendment. I'm just saying that that's my hope for the continuation of this process.
I think it's clear. It's a discussion point. Thank you, Commissioner O'Sullivan. With that, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays?
Nay.
Any abstentions? With that, the motion carries and the amendment moves forward. Commissioners, would you like to further consider other amendments for a vote, or should we move this forward as an amendment with majority support? I know the other amendment has been, go ahead, Commissioner O'Sullivan.
Yeah, I think given that we have a proposal that has received 4 votes, I don't see a need to vote on the other proposed amendments.
Thank you, Commissioner Shah.
I concur.
Concurs. Well, Commissioner Juarez.
I mean, my understanding is we would be voting on all 3. That's what we communicated to the public. So I would prefer that we do vote on all 3.
So I believe Commissioner Shaw and I have withdrawn our amendment. Given that was our proposal and it's been withdrawn, I don't think it needs to be considered any longer.
All right.
Does that change your perspective, Commissioner Juarez?
I mean, unless I'm going to get some last minute votes for my proposal, but I think that's not going to happen. So I'm happy to move forward.
Okay, we're sure about moving forward.
I would just offer to Commissioner Juarez, if he wanted further discussion on his amendment, I would give him a courtesy second so that I could vote against it later.
As much as that would satisfy my entertainment, I'll pass. Thank you.
I think we are in a great place now with all of the great discussions. And once again, commissioners, thank you for your great work. I know that the community has been watching the transparency, the level of commitment that you've all brought to this work. And it feels good to be where we are. It's not easy work. We all know it's not easy. I don't believe we as we signed up for this work, I don't believe at the time I imagined how hard this would be. So with that said, I will just express my gratitude once again. Elsa, you have your hand up before we move to the last agenda item.
I just want to make sure that commissioners do delegate us for us to post all the important, the new draft or the amended draft, so we can put it all on the website and take the other ones off.
Thank you, Elsa. Commissioners, I do believe you are in consensus to give staff the responsibility to post the amendment on our website.
Yes.
Elsa, you're given direction there. Any other needs for staff moving forward, Elsa, as we prepare for the next meeting?
No, we will be making sure that the information is on the website for the public. I know that the commissioners are inviting the public to give comments. We invite the public to keep using the form, which is easier for us to, the form that is on our website. But we will take any comments in any form. We've received a lot of emails. I just want to let people know that it's easier if they are in the form. It's easier for us to get it quicker to the commissioners as they arrive, but we will take them in any form.
Thank you, Elsa. Ariel, then Commissioner Juarez.
Thanks. Just for my clarification for the commission, do you wish to go forward with the, I believe the calendar date now for the final vote is next week, but I was hearing from the commission an interest in fine tuning the draft. So are you looking to leave the proposed date to vote on the final plan as next week?
Go ahead, Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, my request would be that we push back the date to vote on the final map and that we, until we're able to receive a little bit more input.
And we had indicated interest and flexibility in that schedule as we discussed last week. Ariel, is your sense that we should reflect that on our schedule now with changes from the commissioners?
I don't think you have to. If you can amend the, you can always amend the calendar, move to amend the calendar, amend the agenda as the commission sees fit with proper notice. So I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Also, can we ask that you clarify on the public schedule that next week will likely not be a final map vote?
Yes, and it's just a regular meeting, Tuesday, October 25th, where the commission will be discussing amendments to the draft of October 18th.
Yeah. Commissioner Shaw?
Thank you, Chair. Can we discuss when the next vote would take place and potentially discuss now if we're changing the November 1st meeting to Monday or Wednesday, Monday, if that's possible now that we've changed things, that would be preferred.
Thank you. So for the meeting after the 25th, I think that's where we first need to confirm the date to be November 2nd. If it works for most of you. I know November 2nd works best for my calendar.
I'll be missing part of the other meeting that I'm going to be part of this. So if legally we can meet on Monday, that would be my preference, but definitely not my preference to do it from the airplane.
Yeah.
Not possible.
I'm fine with either Monday or Tuesday.
But
Monday or Wednesday?
Sorry, Monday or Wednesday. Thank you.
Yeah, Monday or Wednesday works for me too.
Okay.
But Monday doesn't meet the legal requirement for 7 days,
Well, we're no longer voting on the 25th.
right? And there's not 7 days between the 25th and Monday.
Or if there are amendments at the next meeting, yes, you're right. Because we will need a week. Well, we're not voting on any amendments. This is when we would vote on the amendments. On the 31st will be the time when we vote on amendments.
So we wouldn't need 7 days in between.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So just a question to Ariel. So do we need at least 7 days, exactly 7 days, or no more than 7 days between I guess I'm unclear about the time frame between the final amendment and a vote on the final map.
Ariel?
It would help if I unmuted. RCW 29A 76010, the language is at least 1 week. So at least 1 week between adopting any amendments and adopting the final plan.
So if we did adopt amendments on the 25th, then we could vote on a final map on the 2nd.
Right.
Correct. Sorry, but it sounds like you want to vote rather than the 25th, the 26th.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, I was here. I was misunderstanding when Commissioner Shaw's availability was.
it's the next week that is an issue, I believe.
Okay. So if you were, sorry, in summation, if the commission was to vote, make its final vote on any amendments a week from today, so that's the 25th, and it's scheduled a vote for to adopt a final plan, the November 2nd, that would be in compliance with the RCW.
Yes, but we have discussed that we're not voting on the final map at the next meeting, correct? So we give time for the community to provide feedback. Commissioner Shaw, clarify.
I'm wondering, thank you, Chair, if since we're talking about a very specific change within Districts 6 and 7 and working with the Magnolia community specifically, if we can have that done in the next few days and then vote on it next week. And then decide to move our next meeting to the following Wednesday, and I'll just miss whatever I have to do.
Okay.
Is that feasible? I assume this is your amendment that you'd be, you need to be comfortable with that.
That would work if staff can confirm that some of the extended outreach can be done between now and next week.
Oops.
Elsa, would you be able to support with outreach?
Oops.
For that, of course, we can do that, and I know the Magnolia community has been paying attention, so I don't think, I would need to know specifically what would you want us to do, other than what we've been doing, which is sharing what the new changes are, and making sure that we connect to the people who have sent comments to us, and other folks in the area, in the community.
I think it's sharing information with them and requesting specific feedback on lines. And if there's a desire to meet with 1 or 2 commissioners, happy to make time for that.
Yeah, we can turn that around by tomorrow and get the map posted, get a email and a press release. Requesting specific comments from the Magnolia area, and yeah.
Great. Go ahead, Commissioner Shaw.
Yeah, I would just suggest that 1 or 2 of us have a conversation with, including you, of course, with the Magnolia community, and then take that back to the working with the GIS consultant. And maybe that would altogether take 2, 3, 4 hours.
Yeah. I think that's a great suggestion. We'll follow up and connect with Elsa in facilitating scheduling. Commissioner O'Sullivan?
I'm going to suggest maybe just a slightly longer time frame, which is so that we work between now and October 25th to come up with whatever amendments we have based on feedback from the Magnolia community. We present that at the 25th, but we have a meeting on October 31st where we actually vote on those amendments. And then we could vote on the final, we could take our final vote on Tuesday, November 8th. That would just give us a little bit more time to ensure that we have a full week to work with Magnolia, present the work that we've done, and take a little bit more time at the following week to vote on those amendments.
I see nods. Any concerns about that outline? All right, I think we've found the winner. We will go with that proposal, Commissioner Sullivan, and I think staff caught that. We'll reflect it in our schedule. Staff have been working on the final, unless there are questions on dates, I'll move us along here to the final agenda item. Okay. Staff have been working on the draft resolution. They will be taking some of the comments you shared and remarks today, responding to the amendments to reflect that in the draft resolution. But as soon as you get an opportunity, please share a paragraph or two that's really speaking to some of your work and intent as we've gone through changes with our maps. And this is going to be included in the resolution that will be shared in transferring the final plan for submission. Commissioner Nichols.
I'm just going to push back a little bit on that since it looks like I'm headed toward a no vote. I'm not sure that I can add an awful lot in the spirit of a resolution that supports the action that apparently a majority of the commission is going to take.
Yes, I don't think it has to purely focus on the amendment no vote. It can be the full process of the drafting of the map. And Elsa can clarify if that is not correct. Elsa?
Yes, I also want to remind you that the resolution will include the rationale of all the boundary changes.
Yes.
So for instance, we had sent an email about like what was the rationale behind the new line for District 1, 2, 3, the rest of the other decisions that you've made along the way. And so we actually, for this last one, of course, that would be the last part of the resolution, but it has to come from you. And we've taken some of that. You can take some of that from the retreat, where you made the last decisions or the bulk of the decisions. And so if you have questions, please email me. I just need to get it from you first, and we'll definitely help with that draft. And we'll make sure that it gets edited and everything, but we just need to get it from you first.
Thank you.
And I would add to the commission with that, just a friendly reminder, OPMA rules, if you're sending drafts for those district descriptions, to make sure that you're just sending it to Elsa rather than circulating it amongst the group, and still compile them.
Does that help clarify, Commissioner Nichols?
No, but thank you.
Okay, we'll follow up offline and be sure to provide as much clarity as we can on what's needed for the rationale. With that, we are right at time, and I will say that we'll be meeting on October 25th next week. And at this particular moment, we will take a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays wanting to stay in the meeting? Once again, commissioners, congratulations on your great work and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.